Let's go! LSU Texas A&M breakdown. I'm telling you that this game, you should care about it. I know there's a lot of you that just want to move on and talk about whoever the next coach will be. And we've done a ton of videos on that, including Jimbo Fisher. And obviously, to start off this breakdown, that's going to be key number one. Jimbo, his offenses have not been good on the road during his tenure. Now, before we get into this breakdown, who can forget this glorious night in Tiger Stadium history? The Joe Burreaux. Come on. Was that not special? But really, I wanted to bring that up because the last time Jimbo Fisher was in Tiger Stadium, he put together one of the worst offensive showings ever. They averaged 2.8 yards per play, and Dave Aranda just swarmed the living daylights out of him. And the reason why that's relevant is because Texas A&M at home last year performed even worse than that versus a worse LSU team. Yes, they averaged more yards per play, but that was against the worst defense in LSU history. And this is an issue if you're a Texas A&M fan and if you are one of those people that want Jimbo Fisher to be the next head coach at LSU. Jimbo Fisher is not nearly as good on the road as he is at home. And the second thing is Jimbo Fisher has been awful versus LSU. Even in the 2018-7 overtime game, only 4.9 yards per play, which isn't as bad as these other two offensive showings, but it still isn't great. And keep in mind that they had a fumble recovery for a touchdown, and they should have had the game-ending interception had it not been for Kellen Mond's knee luckily being on the ground. So Jimbo's offenses versus LSU and on the road are so bad. And it's hard to see that changing with Zach Calzada at the quarterback position, even though their skill guys are better this year than what they were last year. I do like Texas A&M's running back tandem. Obviously, they have the best tight end in the SEC and Jalen Werdermeyer, but still, their skill guys are nothing to be really scared about. So, a friendly reminder that we're going to do things a little bit different. We're going to do a pregame, halftime, and post-game show for Saturday. So I just want to see how that works out. It's the last game of the year, potentially, so why not go big as we go into point number two, Max Johnson. Slightly better performance for Max this last week, but that was against ULM. How's he going to perform against one of the best defensive lines in the SEC? Since he's been at Texas A&M, DeMarvin Leal has been an issue for LSU's offensive line, and let's see how he performs this weekend. And look, their defensive line has gotten even better than what it was last year. So, yeah, the offensive line for LSU going up against the defensive line at Texas A&M, their entire defense is just really good in general. And look, they're only going to get better as Jimbo Fisher's recruiting has gotten better. But still, for this game, Max Johnson against his very good Texas A&M defense. And the final point here is obviously Ed Orgeron. I know that just to make it a nice, clean, and fairy tale ending, that the media is going to make a big deal of this being Ed Orgeron's last game in Tiger Stadium. And it is a big deal. Look, this is a guy that won us the national championship. This is a guy that took our program to a height it's never been before. And I understand that a lot of people want to make this a very happy ending narrative. And trust me, I have more great memories of Ed Orgeron than bad ones. But we've got to call a spade here. The reason why we are in this mess right now is because Ed Orgeron fumbled the bag. Which ironically he didn't, because he's still going to get $17 million to leave this program. So the least sympathetic person you should feel for this weekend is Ed Orgeron going into this game. And trust me, I like Ed a lot. It's just the honest truth how much he set this program back over the last couple of seasons. He would still be the coach now if he decided to switch up the defenses just a little bit and a few other things, but still, we look towards the future. Now, we get into an actual prediction here at the end, and look, I freaking love love watching Texas A&M's defense with Mike Elko. I mean, they are a really fun bunch to watch. They've done a really good job, as we said, developing that front seven. They did lose Buddy Johnson, who was probably their best overall player last year at linebacker, but still, Texas A&M's defense overall is better than what it was last year. Still, though, if you're a Texas A&M fan, you know this, and I think everyone knows this now, just based on our Jimbo Fisher deep dive we did recently for him potentially being the next coach at LSU, Jimbo's offenses are so bad away from Kyle Field. And it's not just this year. This is a huge trend. And I'm not going to get too deep into the data, but we go back and look at Clemson and Arkansas and other games that they've played at home and on the road, and the splits are really jarring. And if you're Texas A&M, until Jimbo actually gets that fixed, you're not going to come close to reaching a college football playoff. And I'm not sure if he could fix it right now with a backup quarterback and a struggling offense. So yeah, this point spread set at 6.5. It was opened at, I believe, 7 at the very beginning, but it still has stayed pretty much at 6.5. But the over-under here is set for 47. Now, I gave you, well, I didn't give it to you, but I was hosting a radio show earlier this week, and I did have my favorite play of the week being the Ole Miss and Mississippi State under. And I know that's a completely different game, but rivalry games are normally close and lower scoring, and even when LSU blew the brakes off of Texas A&M the last time they were in Tiger Stadium, and even though this game does feature a 74-72 final score, last year's game was a low-scoring sludge of a matchup, and I think the same is true here. This weekend on Saturday in Tiger Stadium, I know the lights are going to be on. It's going to be a 6 p.m. kick, and I know a lot of you are going to this final game here, and I know a lot of you are looking to turn the page, not only at head coach, but at quarterback with Max Johnson. This SEC West matchup features the two worst quarterbacks in the West. And it stinks to say that. It's kind of crazy to say that, considering Kellen Mond was so solid for Texas A&M, and we just had Joe Burrow. But this is the truth, and neither of these quarterbacks are necessarily playing all that great right now. And I am not on fire about either of the offensive lines in this matchup either. So I actually do like LSU to cover this spread, and I do like LSU to win this game and go bowling. I do think it's going to be a lower scoring affair. I think it's going to be ugly. Final score, 19-16. A field goal fest. Let's do this. Cade York, let's go. So, as many of you know, pregame, halftime, and postgame show, why not? Let's go out with a bang, baby. Let's go. Also, I know a lot of you just want to talk about the head coaching search, and I'll give you a little bit of a hint here as we come towards the end. I do think it would be wild if Jimbo Fisher ends up being the coach at LSU. I just don't see that happening, but that would be the most major smokescreen misdirection hire I think we've ever seen in college football history. But I just don't see that happening. Of course, we did a video yesterday on Dave Aranda. That'll be floating in your face in just a moment. I am a big Dave Aranda guy. I do think he's fantastic, but it looks as if he will stay put in Waco. I still wouldn't count him out. And then, of course, we're still waiting for the biggest domino here, Lincoln Riley. Mel Tucker's gotten his extension. James Franklin's gotten an extension. It looks like neither of them are going anywhere. Could it be Chris Peterson? Could it be Matt Campbell? Could it be Mark Stoops, Bill O'Brien? The list goes on and on for potential suitors. I know some of you are probably wondering, wait, why don't we go after the guy who just gave Ole Miss their first 10-win regular season ever in Lane Kiffin? I just don't think Scott Woodward wants to go after someone that, is a little extracurricular, even though I like Lane a lot. I think LSU should do it if it comes to that point. First thing, when you see this edit actually is pretty good from Go Edits. Does this actually happen? Now, we spent some time talking about Lincoln yesterday. The end of this video is not going to have a whole lot of fancy edits because this edit is so dope. Now, I will say that there are some players and recruits that have followed Lincoln Riley on Twitter, and they are of interest. Harold Perkins being one of them, and more notably, Jack Besh, who is currently on the team, and five-star quarterback Walker Howard, who I think would be thrilled to play in a Lincoln Riley offense. Now, I want to talk about this idea. I'm going to make this term up. It's the LeBron James paradox, okay? And the reason why I'm just making this term up is because the same criticisms I've been hearing about Lincoln Riley are the same criticisms that were made of LeBron James when it comes to his losing record in the NBA Finals. We are penalizing a man that reaches the highest level of the sport for losing to teams that are way better than his. So, perfect example is Lincoln Riley is 0-3 in the playoffs. Now, my video on Lincoln Riley already dispelled this myth that Lincoln Riley can't get it done versus the SEC teams, okay? Lincoln Riley has actually done better versus SEC teams than normal SEC teams normally do. The only guy he has really struggled with is Dave Aranda, as you guys saw this year with Baylor and as you guys saw with the playoff game. So, yes, it is true that Lincoln Riley is 0-3 in the playoffs, but those games, he was supposed to lose those games. He was a 14-point underdog to Alabama with a healthy Tua, and his defense failed him. He was a 14-point underdog to 2019 LSU. Yes, they got blown off the field, but that was the greatest team of all time that he was playing against. And when you play the greatest team of all time, that can happen. Now, Lincoln's offense did struggle in that game. They didn't get a pass interference call to go their way against Derek Stingley, and it was very clearly pass interference. But I don't want to get too much into the minutia of that game. Still, he should have done better. But against every other SEC team he's played, he's actually done better than most teams have done versus those teams. And once again, I'll link it down below. Now, here's the final point as far as this Lincoln Riley paradox. The Georgia game, he should have coached that game better. There were some conservative decisions that he made in that game that I didn't like so much, while at the same time, that game was only a coin flip. Oklahoma did open as a slight favorite, but Georgia actually closed as the favorite to win that game. They made a few more plays in the overtime period, and Georgia actually should have ended up winning the national championship, where they got screwed on some calls in the national championship game. So, Lincoln Riley's 0-3 playoff record, you can't hold it against him. The same way you can't hold it against LeBron for losing in the finals to better teams. Only that Mavericks team would you consider LeBron's team to be better than that Mavericks team, and he lost. But at the same time, LeBron has also won a finals where he was the heavy underdog. And I think at some point, Lincoln Riley will break through and win a college football playoff. Whether that be at Oklahoma or LSU or somewhere else is yet to be seen. But I wanted to talk about that here at the end because, once again, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But we're done. Hope you're enjoying your weekend, and I hope to see you at the live stream tomorrow. It is Power Hour LSU. Boom! We're doing some cheesy carrots tonight. Let's go!